The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov. Chapter 19. Voting the European Way. While the friends were leading a cultured and edifying way of life, visiting museums and making passes at girls, the double widow Gritsatsuyev, a fat and feeble woman, was consulting and conspiring with her neighbors in Plekhanov Street, Stargorod. They examined the note left by Bender in groups and even held it up to the light, but it had no watermark, and even if it had, the mysterious squiggles of the splendid Ostap would not have been any clearer. 3 days passed. The horizon remained clear. Neither Bender, the tea strainer, the imitation gold bracelet, or the chair returned. These animate and inanimate objects had all disappeared in the most puzzling way. The widow then decided to take drastic measures. She went to the office of the Stargorod Truth, where they briskly concocted for her the following notice. Missing from home. I implore anyone knowing the whereabouts of Com Bender to inform me. Age 25 to 30, brown hair, last seen dressed in a green suit, yellow boots, and a blue waistcoat. Information on the above person will be adequately rewarded. Gritsatsuyev, 15 Plekhanov Street. Is he a son? They asked sympathetically in the office. Husband, replied the martyr, covering her face with a handkerchief. Your husband? Why not? He's legal. Nothing. You ought really to go to the militia. The widow was alarmed. She was terrified of the militia. She left, accompanied by curious glances. 3 times did the columns of the Stargorod Truth send out their summons, but the great land was silent. No one came forward who knew the whereabouts of a brown-haired man in yellow boots. No one came forward to collect the adequate reward. The neighbors continued to gossip. People became used to the Stargorod tramway and rode on it without trepidation. The conductor shouted "full up" in fresh voices, and everything proceeded as though the trams had been going since the time of St. Vladimir the Red Sun. Disabled persons of all categories, women and children, and Viktor Polosov sat at the front of the cars. To the cry of "Fares, please," Polosov used to answer "Season," and remain next to the driver. He did not have a season ticket, nor could he have had one. The sojourn of Vorobyaninov and the smooth operator left a deep imprint on the town. The conspirators carefully kept the secret entrusted to them. Even Polosov kept it, despite the fact that he was dying to blurt out the exciting secret to the first person he met. But then, remembering Ostap's powerful shoulders, he stood firm. He only poured out his heart in conversations with the fortune-teller. "What do you think, Elena Stanislavovna?" he would ask. "How do you explain the absence of our leaders?" Elena Stanislavovna was also very intrigued, but she had no information. "Don't you think, Elena Stanislavovna," continued the indefatigable mechanic, "that they're on a very special mission at present?" The fortune-teller was convinced that this was the case. Their opinion was apparently shared by the parrot in the red underpants as well. It looked at Polosov with a round knowing eye, as if to say, "Gimme some C's and I'll tell you all about it. You'll be governor, Victor, all the mechanics will be in your charge, and the yard keeper from number 5 will remain as before, a conceited bum. Don't you think we ought to carry on without them, Elena Stanislavovna? Whatever happens, we can't sit around doing nothing." The fortune-teller agreed and remarked, "He's a hero, our Ippolit Matveyevitch." "He is a hero, Elena Stanislavovna, that's clear, but what about the officer with him? A go-getting fellow. Say what you like, Elena Stanislavovna, but things can't go on like this. They definitely can't." And Polosov began to act. He made regular visits to all the members of the secret society, Sword and Plowshare, pestering Kislarski, the canny owner of the Odessa roll bakery of the Moscow Bun Artel in particular. At the sight of Polosov, Kislarski's face darkened, and his talk of the need to act drove the timid bun-maker to distraction. Towards the weekend they all met at Elena Stanislavovna's in the room with the parrot. Polosov was bursting with energy. "Stop blathering, Victor," said the clear-thinking Dyadyev. "What have you been careering around the town for days on end for?" "We must act," cried Polosov. "Act, yes, but certainly not shout. This is how I see the situation, gentlemen. Once Ippolit Matveyevitch has spoken, his words are sacred, and we must assume we haven't long to wait. How it will all take place we don't need to know. There are military people to take care of that. We are the civilian contingent, representatives of the town intelligentsia and merchants. What's important for us? To be ready. Do we have anything? Do we have a center? No. Who will be governor of the town? There's no one. But that's the main thing, gentlemen. I don't think the British will stand on ceremony with the Bolsheviks. That's our first sign. It will all change very rapidly, gentlemen, I assure you." "Well, we don't doubt that in the least," said Cherishnikov, puffing out his cheeks. "And a very good thing you don't. What do you think, Mr. Kislarski? And you, young men?" Nikesha and Vladya both looked absolutely certain of a rapid change, while Kislarski happily nodded assent, having gathered from what the head of the Fast Pack had said that he would not be required to participate directly in any armed clashes. "What are we to do?" asked Polosov impatiently. "Wait," said Dyadyev. "Follow the example of Mr. Vorobyaниnov's companion. How smart, how shrewd. Did you notice how quickly he got around to assistance to waifs and strays? That's how we should all act. We're only helping the children. So, gentlemen, let's nominate our candidates." "We propose Ippolit Matveyevich Vorobyaninov as Marshal of the Nobility," exclaimed the young Nikesha and Vladya. Cherushnikov coughed condescendingly. "What do you mean? Nothing less than a minister for him. Higher, if you like. Make him a dictator." Come, gentlemen," said Dyadyev. "A marshal is the last thing to think about. We need a governor. I think—" "You, Mr. Dyadyev," cried Polosov ecstatically. "Who else is there to take the reins in our province?" "I am most flattered by your confidence," Dyadyev began, but at this point Cherushnikov, who had suddenly turned pink, began to speak. "The question, gentlemen," he said in a strained voice, "ought to have been aired." He tried not to look at Dyadyev. The owner of Fastpack also looked at his boots, which had wood shavings sticking to them. "I don't object," he said. "Let's put it to the vote. Secret ballot or show of hands?" "We don't need to do it in the Soviet style," said Cherushnikov in a hurt voice. "Let's vote in an honest European way by secret ballot." They voted on pieces of paper. Dyadyev received 4 votes and Cherushnikov 2. Someone had abstained. It was clear from Kislarski's face that he was the one. He did not wish to spoil his relations with the future governor, whoever he might be. When Polosov excitedly announced the results of the honest European ballot, there was silence in the room. They tried not to look at Cherushnikov. The unsuccessful candidate for governor sat in humiliation. Elena Stanislavovna felt very sorry for him, as she had voted in his favor. Cherushnikov obtained his second vote by voting for himself. He was, after all, well versed in electoral procedure. "Anyway, I propose Monsieur Cherushnikov as mayor," said the kindly Elena Stanislavovna immediately. "Why anyway?" asked the magnanimous governor. "Not anyway, but him and no one else. Mr. Cherushnikov's public activity is well known to us all." "Hear, hear," they all cried. "Then can we consider the election accepted?" The humiliated Cherushnikov livened up and even tried to protest. No, gentlemen, I request a vote. It's even more necessary to vote for a mayor than for a governor. If you wish to show me your confidence, gentlemen, I ask you to hold a ballot." Pieces of paper poured into the empty sugar bowl. 6 votes in favor and 1 abstention. "Congratulations, Mr. Mayor," said Kislarski, whose face gave away that he had abstained this time too. "Congratulations." Cherushnikov swelled with pride. "And now it only remains to take some refreshment, Your Excellency," he said to Dyadyev. "Polosov, nip down to the October Beer Hall. Do you have any money?" Polosov made a mysterious gesture with his hand and ran off. The elections were temporarily adjourned and resumed after supper. As ward of the educational region, they appointed Raspopov, former headmaster of a private school and now a second-hand book dealer. He was greatly praised. R was only Vladya, who protested suddenly after his 3rd glass of vodka. "We mustn't elect him. He gave me bad marks in logic at the school leaving exams." They all went for Vladya. "At such a decisive hour you must not think of your own good, think of the fatherland." They brainwashed Vladya so quickly that he even voted in favor of his tormentor. Raspopov was elected by 6 votes with 1 abstention. Kislarski was offered the post of chairman of the Stock Exchange Committee. He did not object, but abstained during the voting just in case. Drawing from among friends and relations, they elected a chief of police, a head of the assay office, and a customs and excise inspector. They filled the vacancies of regional public prosecutor, judge, clerk of the court, and other law court officials. They appointed chairmen for the Zemstvo and Merchants' Council, the Children's Welfare Committee, and finally the Shop Owners' Council. Elena Stanislavovna was elected ward of the Drop of Milk and White Flower Societies. On account of their youth, Nikesha and Vladya were appointed special duty clerks attached to the governor. "Wait a minute," exclaimed Cherushnikov suddenly. "The governor has 2 clerks, and what about me?" "A mayor is not entitled to special duty clerks." "Then give me a secretary." Dyadyev consented. Elena Stanislavovna also had something to say. "Would it be possible," she said, faltering. "I know a young man, a nice and well-brought-up boy, Madame Cherkasov's son. He's a very, very nice and clever boy. He hasn't a job at present and has to keep going to the employment office. He's even a trade union member. They promised to find work for him in the union. Couldn't you take him? His mother will be very grateful." "It might be possible," said Cherushnikov graciously. "What do you think, gentlemen?" "All right, I think that could be arranged." "Right then, that seems to be about all," Dyadyev observed. "What about me?" a high-pitched nervous voice suddenly said. They all turned around. A very upset Viktor Polosov was standing in the corner next to the parrot. Tears were bubbling on his black eyelids. The guests all felt very ashamed, remembering that they had been drinking Polosov's vodka and that he was basically one of the organizers of the Stargorod branch of the Sword and Plowshares. Elena Stanislavovna seized her head and gave a horrified screech. "Viktor Mikhailovich!" they all gasped. "Pal, shame on you! What are you doing in the corner? Come out at once!" Polosov came near. He was suffering. He had not expected such callousness from his fellow members of the Sword and Plowshare. Elena Stanislavovna was unable to restrain herself. "Gentlemen," she said, "this is awful. How could you forget Viktor Mikhailovich, so dear to us all?" She got up and kissed the mechanic aristocrat on his sooty forehead. "Surely Viktor Mikhailovich is worthy of being a ward or a police chief." "Well, Viktor Mikhailovich," asked the governor, "do you want to be a ward?" "Well, of course he would make a splendid humane ward," put in the mayor, swallowing a mushroom and frowning. "Well, what about Respopov? You already nominated Respopov." "Yes, indeed. What shall we do with Respopov?" "Make him a fire chief, eh?" "A fire chief?" exclaimed Polosov, suddenly becoming excited. A vision of fire engines, the glare of lights, the sound of the siren, and the drumming of hoofs suddenly flashed through his mind. Axes glimmered, torches wavered, the ground heaved, and black dragons carried him to a fire at the town theater. "A fire chief? I want to be a fire chief." "Well, that's fine. Congratulations, you're now the fire chief." "Let's drink to the prosperity of the fire brigade," said the chairman of the Stock Exchange Committee sarcastically. They all went for him. "You were always left-wing. We know you. What do you mean, gentlemen, left-wing?" We know, left-wing. All Jews are left-wing." "Honestly, gentlemen, I don't understand such jokes. You're left-wing, don't try to hide it. He dreams about Milyukov at night." "Cadet, you're a cadet." "The cadets sold Finland," cried Cherishnikov suddenly, "and took money from the Japanese. They split the Armenians." Kislarski could not endure the stream of groundless accusations. Pale, his eyes blazing, the chairman of the Stock Exchange Committee grasped hold of his chair and said in a ringing voice, "I was always a supporter of the Tsar's October Manifesto and still am." They began to sort out who belonged to which party. "Democracy above all, gentlemen," said Cherishnikov. "Our town government must be democratic." "But without cadets, they did the dirty on us in 1917. "I hope," said the governor acidly, "that there aren't any so-called social democrats among us." There was nobody present more left-wing than the Octoberists represented at the meeting by Kislarski. Cherishnikov declared himself to be the center. The extreme right-wing was the fire chief. He was so right-wing that he did not know which party he belonged to. They talked about war. "Any day now," said Dyadyev. "There will be a war, yes there will. I advise stocking up with a few things before it's too late." "Do you think so?" asked Kislarski in alarm. "Well, what do you think? Do you suppose you can get anything in wartime? Flour would disappear from the market right away. Silver coins will vanish completely. There will be all sorts of paper currency, and stamps will have the same value as banknotes and all that sort of thing. War, that's for sure." "You may think differently, but I'm spending all my spare cash and buying up essential commodities," said Dyadyev. "And what about your textile business?" "Textiles can look out for themselves, but the flour and sugar are important. That's what I advise you, I urge you even." Polosov laughed derisively. "How can the Bolsheviks fight? What with? What will they fight with? Old-fashioned rifles? And the Air Force? A prominent communist once told me that they only have... Well, how many planes do you think they have?" "About 200. 200? Not 200, but 32. And France has 80,000 fighters." It was past midnight when they all went home. Yes, indeed, they've got the Bolsheviks worried. The governor took the mayor home. They both walked with an exaggeratedly even pace. "Governor," Cherishnikov was saying, "how can you be a governor when you aren't even a general?" "I shall be a civilian governor. Why are you jealous? I'll jail you whenever I want. You'll have your fill of jail from me." "You can't jail me. I've been elected and entrusted with authority." "They prefer elected people in jail." "Kindly don't try to be funny," shouted Cherishnikov for all the streets to hear. "What are you shouting for, you fool?" said the governor. "Do you want to spend the night in the police station?" "I can't spend the night in the police station," retorted the mayor. "I'm a government employee." A star twinkled. The night was enchanting. The argument between the governor and the mayor continued down 2nd Soviet Street.